Hey guys, welcome back to a little Jays talk. Here we got Monday morning. It is roughly 11 a.m. where I am over in Alberta. Just got a bit of administrative work to get out of the way here at the start. I did get a message from a Katie on X, or formerly Twitter, and she was in response to my trade history of Ross Atkins. She said, "Great video. Don't forget to ask for likes and subscriptions." So this is the first comment or message that I have received on this channel, and it's pointed out a very valid issue that I guess I've been having is if you like the videos, please drop a like and subscribe. So with that being said, thank you, Katie, for the message. I appreciated it. Yeah, it was good to hear from some of you. So with that being said, today's video we'll look at a little bit further. Last video, we had Ross Atkins trade history. This one is going to be Ross Atkins free agency history. The main difference that I'm noticing between the two, with the trade history, there wasn't a lot of outrage for me in either direction. There was the Teoscar Hernandez trade when we received him. That was one of our better trades, probably in franchise history, let alone Ross Atkins history. And then there were a lot of good, very strong starting pitching trades. I think we identified that Ross Atkins does have a fairly good eye for acquiring starting pitching specifically. And then our main gripes weren't so much with the deals that he made, but they were the deals that he didn't make, specifically in 23 and 24. That was kind of where we honed in as being the problem with his trade history. In free agency, I'm seeing a lot more polarizing deals here. There's some really strong, good deals, and there are some absolute train wreck deals. So yeah, this one, there's definitely a little bit more fluctuation in his history than with the trade market. So we'll try to rattle through these here pretty quick today. I've got them sifted through to some of the more prominent ones in his history. I'm not going to go over every transaction, just like the trades. And just for a brief reminder, 2016 was a competitive year. 17, 18, 19, we were in the dumps. Those were kind of our rebuild years. And then 20 onward is when we started pushing in again, just for some context to what deals were and weren't being made in those times. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. So we'll start off the end of 2016. And this was Ross Atkins' first real big signing, if you want to call it that. Kendrys Morales, November 11th, 2016. Signs a 3-year, $33 million contract with Toronto. And if memory serves, this was basically when we moved on from Edwin Encarnacion. From a sentimental standpoint, that stung. And I thought Kendrys Morales was an all right player, switch hitter with some power and all that. It was more just the seeing Edwin go, that signaled kind of the end is upon us. 2016 was our last competitive year of that window. And this was one of those first real changes where it was like, okay, yeah, it really is over. For me, that deal never panned out. It was pretty much a bust. Luckily, it was only $11 million a year, but that's pretty close to an F. I'll give that like a C- of a signing, just because I say it gave up on that core of fan favorites that we did have, and the deal itself just did not pan out. So yeah, that's like, if you want to call that an F, go ahead and call it that. I might bump it up to like a D or a C-, but that's about as high as I can possibly give that one. Next month later, we've got Steve Pearce signs a 2-year, $12.5 million contract with Toronto. Steve Pearce, solid player, reasonable salary, and we ended up flipping him for Santiago Espinal, who he went on to win a World Series MVP in Boston. We got Santiago Espinal, who was an all-star for us for a brief period of time, and it was an all-right player. Fans liked him. He was decent. 2 years, $12.5 million for Steve Pearce. That's a C+ to me. It's a good, strong deal. We flipped him for value. No complaints there. January 2017, we brought back Jose Bautista on a 1-year, $18.5 million contract. And from what I recall, that had options in 19 and 20 as well. And unfortunately, at this point, Jose Bautista was pretty much washed. He had a not great 2016 while we were still competing. and it only got worse in 17. And then he basically ended up fizzling out in that 17-18 timeframe. He went over to the Mets. Who all did he go to? The Mets, the Phillies, the Braves, and he was done at this point basically. So $18.5 million for a fan favorite who just didn't have it anymore. That's another one of those. I think he hit 20 home runs for us that year, so I won't call it an F, but that's another one of those C- type deals. Just not a good look. So we're not off to a good start here. February 2018, so going into the 18 season. Jaime Garcia, 1 year, $10 million contract with a club option. He didn't pan out the way that we maybe thought he would have. Jaime Garcia had been a good starting pitcher. He should have had more in the tank than we ended up getting out of him. But overall, I'm sorry, I'm going to give this deal like a C. $10 million for a mediocre starting pitcher in a year where we weren't competing. Yeah, C sounds good. Now, Tanner Roark in December of 2019. So going into the 2020 season. So yeah, there were no big signings going into the 2019 season by the looks of it. The next jump will in fact be into the off season of 2019 going into the 2020 season. So Tanner Roark, 2 years, $24 million. That is an F. Tanner Roark was a workhorse. He was known for, pitching close to 200 innings. None of that translated in Toronto, if you remember. We were looking to compete or we hadn't planned on competing, but we ended up competing in the COVID shortened season in 2020. And that Tanner Roark deal not contributing at all was a fairly significant hindrance in hindsight. So yeah, I'll give that an F. 2 weeks later, 4 year, $80 million contract to Hyun-Jin Ryu. Ryu was pretty much the first signal of the Blue Jays starting to turn it around from cratering through 17, 18, 19. He was kind of like, I think everyone was like, well, we don't really need this ace right now. We're not quite there yet, but we've got to start building eventually. So a 4-year deal for him made sense. 4 years, 80 million. I think both sides are happy with that. We got value out of it. Then he fizzled out at the end. I'm overall happy. Like, that's a C+ deal to me. We got what we wanted out of it, but it wasn't great. Then through the 2020 season, we had acquired Robbie Ray in trade from the Diamondbacks, and we touched on that last video. Now, the trade itself was fine. We brought Robbie Ray in, got to look at him. This signing, though, of a 1 year, $8 million contract actually felt high at the time. I remember being surprised that we gave Robbie Ray that much money up front so soon into free agency. And what a steal did that end up being. I mean, the guy goes on to pitch some of the best pitching we've ever seen in a Blue Jays uniform, not literally, but close. Wins a Cy Young, walks in free agency, but that 1 year deal for $8 million was an absolute steal. That is an A+ signing in my mind, at least an A. That is a really, really strong signing. So yeah, definitely good work there. That same offseason, January 2021, 6 years, $150 million contract to George Springer. Not good. We got a couple effective seasons out of him there when he was healthy. He was hurt on and off, but he was a productive player for the first year and a half. Now this feels like an absolute albatross. So ideally, when you're signing a guy to 6 years, you want more than 2 years out of it, or even like a year and a half. There's still time for him to turn it around, but just given his age and everything, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. This one, honestly, is probably an F, because it is one of the main hindrances to why we are not competitive right now. I mean, it's not his fault, but he was involved in that collision in center field in 22 that led to the derailment there. And I just got to feel like if we had his 25 million spent on a true cleanup hitter right now, this team would look entirely different. January 26, 2021, so 1 week later, Marcus Semien, 1 year, $18 million contract. Semien went on to what did he do? Set the MLB record for most home runs by a second baseman, was an all-star, ended up parlaying that into a mega deal in Texas. 1 year, $18 million for Semien ended up being great value. The only kicker there was that we didn't sign him for longer, but there was no way of knowing he was going to break out quite that good. But yeah, 1 year, $18 million. I'll give that a solid B. That was a very strong signing. Like I say, just a shame it couldn't have had more term to it, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Now we're moving on to the off season of 21, so heading into the 22 season. Jimmy Garcia, 2 years, $11 million. Reliever, 5.5 a year. Decent back end guy. That's a C+ deal to me. Kevin Gausman, 5 years, $110 million. Goes on to look like a Cy Young for the first few years. This year he had a bit of a dip, but he did rebound at the end of the year. I'm not convinced he's washed. In fact, I'm predicting he will have a very strong season next year. I think the slow start out of spring training cost him this year, and I think he comes back looking completely different next year, I hope. So Kevin Gausman deal, I will give a solid B. That's $22 million for an ace. It's actually $22 million for an ace. That's probably a B+ at that point. Like, we locked him up for 5 years at a good value, and he's done nothing but really be strong for us. So no complaints there. Yusei Kikuchi, fan favorite, 3 years, $36 million. This is right before the start of the 22 season. So we've got Jimmy Garcia, we've got Gausman, and now we're bringing in Kikuchi. This one was polarizing. He was terrible at the start, like actually almost unplayable at the start, and then rebounded into, I don't want to say the best pitcher we have, but he definitely solidified a rotation spot. And he became a fan favorite just for his antics and just the way that he behaved on the mound and the guy that he was. He definitely won Toronto over as soon as he started pitching halfway decent. And then obviously we were able to flip him into Jake Bloss, Will Wagner, and Joey Loperfido. So 3 years, $36 million for 2 years of a good starter. I'll give that one probably about a B to a B+, considering what we traded him for at the end of that as well. Probably B+. So good work there, Ross. Kevin Kiermaier is next. I'll probably just touch on both of his signings at this one time. So this was December 10th, 22. So heading into the 23 season. We had just had the heartbreaking loss to the Mariners in the playoffs, and we course corrected hard to defense. Kevin Kiermaier was one of those big moves. 1 year, $9 million, and December 10th, 2022. I will give that a C+. He was good for us. His bat performed. He was the supposed best 9-hitter in baseball. 1 year deal, no real complaints. So you can see why we went and brought him back in December of 23. The only problem with that is we made the trade for Dalton Varsho, whose biggest value is as a center fielder. And that re-signing after you saw firsthand how good Dalton Varsho was in the field and how badly you needed a bat, that Kevin Kiermaier signing, in hindsight, I get it, of 2023 is probably about an F, because you just saw that he was a little bit redundant with how good Dalton Varsho was, and you saw you needed more power and hitting in general. You didn't need 2 Gold Glovers out there in center field with light left-handed bats. So first signing, C+, something like that. The fact that they re-signed him the next year, again, with a bit of hindsight, probably an F. So now we're back to December 2022. Chris Bassett, 3 years, $63 million. So Bassett pitched very well for us in 23, not great in 24. Hopeful that he can rebound and at least be a solid 3 for us in 25. That's the hope. Right now, C+. You get 1 good year out of the guy. This year was an overall write-off for the whole team, and he still gave us innings, 4 ERA, whatever he did. It's not worth $20 million, but it's also not unplayable either. So yeah, that's like a C+ contract at this point. Let's see what he does in 25. January 9th, 2023, Brandon Belt, 1 year, $9.3 million. He was hurt. He was limited, but he was one of our best hitters. Um, I mean, as much as we wish we could have done more, that deal in and of itself, 1 year, $9 million to bring in a DH slash first baseman who's one of your best hitters, that's like a B deal to me. It was fine. If we could have, if our JT signing had become Brandon Belt, I think we all would have been happy. So yeah, it's a B. Chad Green, 2-year, $8.5 million contract. That one had some options on the end that I don't quite remember, but I know that they've been exercised now. So he will be pitching on, I think, $10.5 million in 2025. So he was rehabbing at this point, I believe. And 2 years, $8.5 million, that seems like a C plus for me. It's Chad Green, steady arm. He's gone on to pitch very well for us. He's a little bit older. You're not crazy excited about him being a closer or anything like that. But if he's your 7th inning guy, you are happy with that. So yeah, that's like a C plus deal to me. Like, good job identifying a solid reliever. That's about it. I've already touched on Kevin Kiermaier here in the offseason of 23. IKF signed a 2-year, $15 million contract with Toronto. He played way above this contract, or at least to this contract. I think when he first got paid, everyone was losing their minds. And he kind of went out there and shut up some fans, especially while he was in the Blue Jays organization. And then we were able to flip him for, I joked about this on X, perennial 40 home run hitter, Charles McAdoo. So yeah, fleece of the century there. But in all honesty, yeah, IKF, he played way above his pay grade with Toronto. And I don't know how the year 2 of that deal will go, but that's not our problem. For the 1/2 of a year that we did get, I would give that signing a B. I'm pleasantly surprised with how that played out. Justin Turner, 1 year, $13 million contract. There's 2 ways of looking at this one. I want to give it like a D because he took our DH spot and we needed a masher cleanup hitter there and we just did not get it. So I want to rank this really low, probably an F even. The reason why I will bump it up to not an F, it'll be like a D, is because if you look at what the other bats on the market that were kind of in his same tier ended up doing, we were kind of, we were looking at Jock Peterson, who I don't think would have come here. He really likes the West Coast. He had a pretty strong season, but Jorge Soler kind of sucked this year, and he was in that same echelon as Turner. Turner was all right. I believe he ended up like around a league average hitter, maybe just below. So JD Martinez is another one that was in that same conversation, and he didn't have a great season. So, I mean, when I factor in the alternatives that we were looking at, there just wasn't a lot there in that market. So like I say, I won't give it an F because we did about as good as we could in that area of shopping. The reason why I wanted to give it an F was because that was the area we were looking at doing our shopping. So the signing itself, bad, not terrible. The fact that Ross identified that tier of the market as being where we needed to shop, that was the F in my mind, in short. So yeah, these ones are a little bit more polarizing than the trades. Like I said, I had a generally positive review of the trades. The signings, a couple of really solid deals in there. There's, 3 or 4 really strong deals. But the absolute backbreakers to me are, the George Springer deal is really costing us right now. Going for Kevin Kiermaier, IKF, and Turner last offseason when we really, maybe there wasn't a free agent there that fixed all those holes, but we really should have been pushing him with some trades or something there rather than just settling as those as our signings. So yeah, that Springer deal and then the Kiermaier, IKF, Turner are the ones where you're looking at how this roster shapes up now and you're really going like, what were we doing? Because those really feel like they've cost us some playoff appearances here in 24 and even maybe some playoff success in 23, although you never really know how the playoffs will shake out, as we're seeing again this year. So yeah, that's a brief summary of Ross Atkins' trade history, free agency history. So feel free to drop a comment below and let me know which signings you like and didn't like. And by all means, if you like the video, feel free to like the video and drop a subscription. I'm still new. I'm still starting out. I've just ordered in some microphones and a ring light, and I'm getting a little office set up. So yeah, I look forward to doing more of these videos and hearing back from you guys. So thanks a lot for stopping by.